Welcome to the Invincible Innovation Show, the podcast for changemakers. Each week, I talk to the most fascinating entrepreneurs and innovation leaders about innovation, strategy, and design. Hey everyone, so happy to see you all. Today we're going to talk about outsourcing development, and it's going to be really interesting what you must know about development. And welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Mazor, Kario, product innovation and value creation expert, and I'll be your host. And I have a very special guest with me. Hi, Asim. How are you?
Hey, Adi. Thank you very much for having me on this podcast.
Sure. So Asim is the co-founder and CTO of TekRevol. He is an expert in next generation technology and software solution. And I'm sure we're going to have really a fascinating talk. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and ask questions. And now we can start. So we're talking about outsourcing development. Why do you think it's so important these days?
So I think digitization is one of the key factor for most of the businesses' growth in the last couple of years and even the decades. And business mostly focuses on developing the software so that they can streamline and simplify their operations, or maybe they can focus more toward their uh, business side of thing, or their competencies rather than working on building the teams and other stuff. So, and however, it is like not very easy for everybody to develop and set up an in-house team, just because there are a lot of constraints and there are a lot of efforts required. So that's why the software outsourcing has seen a lot of significant growth in the last couple of decades. So like one of the primary reasons, like there are the two main primary reasons, which would be number one is the low cost and the reduced cost, development cost, and the number two is the speed. But when we go further into the primary factor, like why any company go towards software outsourcing, it is primarily it is basically number one reason is basically the access to the wider pool of talent. So for example, if you are the company and you would like to have few resources, so you will have a limitation that right now in your area that you will be able to find only few resources. But if you go with the outsourcing, that you can hire anybody across the globe. So maybe without compromising on the quality and any other stuff, you can still hire somebody in a different country, and then they can produce the same kind of quality and the speed which you are expecting. So yes, that actually helps you to increase your horizon and broaden the search in a way that you can should not be limited to the talent pool that is available in your area only, but you can go forward and you can have more people, or you can have access to the greater pool.
Yeah, I totally
Number
agree. And another thing which is very important, that in the past, only technology companies needed developers. But today, each company, doesn't matter who they are, they do need developers just to create their own software, their own internal products, their own workflows. They need developers, even if they don't come from the technology industry.
Exactly, like I said, like everybody wants, like every business is trying to develop some sort of software application solution in order to streamline their customer experiences, or maybe they want to solve some redundant problem in their operations, or maybe they just want to simplify the business processes. So they need a software solution in any way. So like when we talk about the digital transformation, everything is moving towards that side. So like in order to achieve that, of course, you need to rely on some kind of the software development team. So that can be in-house or that can be an outsourcing company. So again, like there are a lot of challenges with the in-house software teams, and especially if you are not from the technology space and you are from the different industry, then of course you don't want to get into that kind of trouble, or maybe like the technical stuff which it's not your cup of tea, and you actually do not want to spend a lot of time on that. So let somebody who is more expert in this domain actually take care of your business vision, so that whatever the idea or objective you have, you can just translate that information to this outsourcing company, and they will take care of the rest. So like
Yeah.
as, as I said, like uh, access to the pool, then of course uh, development cost is another issue. Like most of the companies who are actually who want to develop something. So like hiring the resources, recruiting the resources, training them, and then providing them all the infrastructure is a lot of trouble. It's a lot of ask to like have like compromise on your business side rather than you are building your team. So going towards the outsourcing development team, they actually helps you to like come up with all this skill set and expertise, and as well as like you do not need to care about their daily stuff or maybe their architecture problem or maybe infrastructure problem, sorry, and maybe some other daily routine problem. So you just outsource your thing and let them work on your vision, and you just keep a check on that and make sure your product is taking the shape the way it should be.
Yeah, and many companies are asking, should they have inside team, a team that would keeping the data and the knowledge within the company, or to hire partial or full outsource outside team. What would you say about that?
I think it is a common problem, and the most of the time we have been asked this question just because we are from the same technology industry. So, like, first of all, we always educate our businesses or our customers to like define their business objective in their own format. They should be very clear in their head, like what exactly they want to achieve, what their business requirements are. So something, for example, if you have a really confidential solution or something where you want to work in person with the team, then of course having an in-house team is like more preferred option. But when you talk about like growing the business and you do not have a lot of constraint on that side, then of course software outsourcing is the best option, because you are relying on the technical expertise. You are already reducing your development effort. You are not getting into the like hustle bustle of hiring resources, firing resources, taking care of their salaries, taking care of their personal issues. So you are just not really into that. And at the same time, one of the benefit which I see, and which we and the experience which we have got while working with a lot of companies in the past, is like having your in-house team can have like a good expertise in terms of like people from the industry, but they have very limited knowledge sometimes, just because, for example, if you're like oil and gas sector organization, so you have like the people from the industry, but they have a very limited information. But when you go with the outsourcing, you actually have the team who has like a lot of experience across for working with a lot of different industries. So they bring that experience, that knowledge, so that you can actually utilize this with a broader perspective, and you just do not see from the one lens of like this particular industry how it works, but you actually have a more uh, oversight, and you have a more control or more experience to rely on. So i
Yeah.
think i think this is one of the particular part, and the last part is basically the specialization and the expertise. So you can always have an in-house resources, but you cannot have that kind of leverage which you actually get with outsourcing company. Because like, for example, your guy, like you wanted to have you hired few developer, but all of a sudden you got into some kind of functionality problem where you actually wanted somebody from the cloud side. So you always have this luxury and this flexibility with the outsourcing company, that they can actually help you building a scalable team, or at the same time they become more flexible so that they can provide you real time expertise, so you do not fall behind with your timelines, or you do not really compromise on your final launch, or maybe like whatever the deadline you have set for the business.
Yeah, but if they don't come from technology, how would they know what is like the pace of things, the quality of results that they get? How would they be sure that what they're getting is something that they could elaborate afterwards, that it would do a good job, that the code is written really well, because they don't come from that kind of knowledge, right?
I think when you outsource a product to any external outsourcing organization, one of the key factors is basically, whenever you go, you have to define your requirements very clear. You have to be very clear in your head. You have those requirements, should have your requirement on the paper, so that whenever you go for the hunting and hiring any outsourcing company, the first thing they would like to know, like, what exactly you want to build. So if you have the very clear requirement, then that actually has an impact on the final product. So the better the requirement, the clearer the requirements and the vision and the entire mission of the product you provide to the team, then of course you can expect a better result. But in terms of like the other activities which normally the software development teams actually perform, how to keep track of the progress, and like normally what we educate and what we counsel to our customer is basically to like get some of our knowledge, even though if they are not technical, then but still we would like to conduct that kind of interview in the upfront, so that we would like to understand their whole business, like what their business is, and then we try to understand their consumer and the persona as well, like who is going to use this application. So based on your experience and skill set, you actually come up with the solution, and you actually propose your own set of standards, so that this is what the kind of standard we will be using. And if somebody technical from your side, if you can like bring on board, we can work together, we can collaborate, and we can define standards together. So there won't be any communication gap that yes, this kind of code standard quality we were expecting, with this kind of architecture we were expecting, and like maybe I had a vision of making a product that is like very scalable and robust for the future needs. So yes, if I am taking a correct measures or not. So if the customer do not come up with this kind of skill set or the knowledge, then we as a software development company, as a software outsourcing company, it is their responsibility to educate customer and come up with the best practices of the industry requirements. And based on that, you can expect, okay, these guys are the one who actually understood my needs, and based on those needs, they actually develop the solution that fulfills the requirements.
So what you're saying is that the initial definition from the client side is the key to get good results in the end.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, so we talked about the advantages, but I'm sure there are lots of like things that a CTO needs to know when he's getting outsourced developers. So what do you think most CTOs don't know about outsourcing developers?
So I think like just because we have experienced few issues in the last couple of engagements, so yes, I can relate that. And like one of the core, like with my experience, which I have learned just because I am the CTO as well. So whenever you outsource your software development work to any organization, you have to understand that how would you integrate that outsourcing team with your in-house team. So most of the time you can actually tell them like what exactly your needs are, but you are not able to bring that team to your wavelength or maybe the frequency, just because you did not actually share a lot of information. So for example, there is a case like you outsource a product to the software development team, and they started working on based on the requirements and everything, but you did not specify the standard, you did not specify the security measures which have to take, and you did not specify about the longer term vision about the product, and the architecture side, and team started working on it. And when the team started working on it, later on the road, you actually identified, oh no, this is not something we want. This is not going to work with our other functions of the businesses, just because they never thought about it. That was all in their head. So number one thing is like when I said the business objectives and the requirements should be clear. And number two, when you are outsourcing as a CTO, then you have to make sure that these guys can be brought to your wavelength on your team frequency, so that whatever you are communicating, just because these are not the people who are sitting inside in-house, these guys are sitting somewhere else, or maybe these guys are not from the part of your culture. So of course they will take some time to understand what exactly you want in terms of the technology requirement, what exactly the kind of features you are talking about, what exactly your customers are. And
Yeah.
the number two thing is even more than important to this integration part is basically the effective communication. It is simple, but yet the most crucial and most critical part. So you could be the best CTO, you could be the best outsourcing company, but if you do not establish an effective communication and the channel and the protocol, then you will face a lot of hurdle. You will face a lot of trouble just because communication channel was not provided. So we have seen a lot of problems due to communication gaps, or like the teams were not on the same page just because they were talking a different language, they were on the different side, and when you start talking about something, you are going towards south. So establishing the communication is some of the important piece. If not being communicated properly, then you feel you like there is a highly probability that your product is going to be failed.
Yeah. Could you give us like an example of one of your like projects? How did it work? Like something that
Yeah,
you learned from a project.
as I mentioned, like it happened in the past, like few months ago. Like one of the customer which we have been like the enterprise client, we have been working with them, and they outsource the product to us. And like the team from my side, they have been working really hard on the lot of different projects and lot of different features. But uh, after few months, we actually realized that there have been a lot of dissatisfaction from the customer side, just because they said like, okay, this is not what we wanted. How come that could be possible? Just because we understood, we sat together, we set the requirement, we understood everything, but later on we realized that okay, we missed some important communication aspect, like like the technology stack. Yes. So like this is the problem with the CTOs as well. Like they pre-assume sometimes, the organization pre-assume sometimes, like, oh, that I thought you guys were working on the .NET technology. I never asked this question, but we started that product starting working in the Node.js technology. So there was a big gap, and nobody understood this completely. So I said, okay, this is going to be a communication problem. So and then there was a lot of a follow up. There was a lot of other kind of constraint and concern from the customer side. So what we did is basically set up like bi-weekly meeting, and even having a two meeting on the weekly basis, and we just try to communicate a lot to the customer. We try to like bring them on the daily scrum, provided a daily update, and then had proper meeting and set the milestone up front, and then provided a requirement. And after 1 month or 2 months, we were able to see a good progress, the customer satisfaction, and everything was really aligned. So again, the communication is the critical factor of any successful business uh, process development or the software development.
Yeah. Could you give us an example of a project that you're very proud of that was successful and you say, okay, we've done it really well and fast and everything went well?
There has been few, of course. I, I I think one of the project which we did 2 years ago is basically was nominated for the Fast Company the most inspiring idea. So that got nominated, and that product was about like it was collaboration and social networking tool that actually used to bring the low minorities youngster to like work with uh, the agencies, like law enforcement agencies I'm talking about, so that they can get educated upfront about the laws and policies, so they should not be getting into any trouble or making any sort of crime. So that was some of the product. And whenever we get any, so like that is like one of our core achievement for sure. And then there have been few more in terms of uh, like credibility. And similarly, we just developed one of the very extensive game project, which is now going to be live in the next couple of days. So that idea is very close to our heart, and we had a very good relationship with the customer, just because that the idea revolved around the entrepreneurship and their journey and everything. So we could relate a lot to like what we have been through. So we enjoyed
Yeah.
the entire journey. It took us like around 2 years to like build that team, but this is going to be one of the fantastic game which I think we have ever produced. So it is not about these are few applications, but there is a lot you can look into our portfolio. But we normally get credit, or we normally get really excited whenever the product idea is about giving back to the society, where we can play some role and where we can add more value. So it is always an inspiring, and it is always an engaging discussion and communication. So we always want to be on that cause or be a part of that particular mission. So yeah, that is our strength, I guess.
Yeah, I totally understand. When you do something that you believe in, it's much more fun than just doing the work. So I
Exactly.
totally understand that. You mentioned traditional or cultural differences, right? So I guess that some of the companies you work with are maybe outside your company. What kind of like differences or way of thinking which is different that you see in your work?
So I think there are like multiple risks associated when you outsource a project to any other company, and especially if they are from the different culture, or maybe are working from the different region of the world, different part of the world. So yeah, the language, the cultural could be one problem, and then like mostly it's a language barrier, mostly it's a cultural barrier. Like for example, when you work with any Ukrainian based company, when you work with any Pakistan based company, there is always a cultural difference. You will actually have to understand, like I said, just because you do not have this luxury, you do not have this team working with you inside your house, then of course you will have to understand their practices as well. This is how they work. This is the kind of culture they have. This is the kind of procedures and standards they normally follow. And so like you as a CTO or as owner of the company, if you are taking from, if you're trying to control that part, it is really hard because you have a very limited control on their development process. So you have to trust those people. You have to trust on their policies and their culture, that how they are working it. Yes, effective communication resolves a lot of issues again, but yes, at the same time, you do not have a lot of control on the development processes, and sometimes you end up like having some sort of break with your intellectual property theft. So like you can take a lot of measures to like protect that intellectual property and other like confidential information. But cultural thing is to like understand, sometimes the developers on the other side are like really fun or enjoy related guys. They like enjoying their work, but you are more of a sophisticated guy. You like being really professional at the same time. So sometimes you adjust your thing a bit so that you can understand their side as well, and at the same time you can actually embrace a little bit of your side as well, to see like, guys, this is how we work. So we can establish this kind of collaboration where we will enjoy the working together, and like the common objective is to like achieve something that is valuable on the both sides. So that cultural difference sometimes actually creates a trouble. But if you open the communication line properly, if you communicate more, if you understand their side, their mind, their working style, then I'm sure most of the time you actually enjoy working, and at the same time you get a chance to like understand and learn from the other cultures as well. So it is always
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the difference? You mentioned the Ukrainian developers and people from your area. So, what do you think is the difference? Because it's like two hubs for developers, right?
Hmm.
So, it's
So
some kind of a contest, or like the way to who's going to win that. Who do you think
no,
is going to win?
I think both will live for sure. I think like it is a personal opinion, of course, and little bit of like the research that is around. Like Ukrainians, the companies from the Ukraine, they have like really good side of the UI and UX, of course, and even that's the only reason like we actually set up our office over there, and we compile our team over there, just because we knew the kind of like eye they have for the user interface designs and user experiences, that is like known, and everybody really understand that like the kind of knowledge, maybe it is in their blood, that they come up with so many different experiments that looks really elegant, really fancy stuff. So I don't think so, like I haven't seen better designs than Ukrainians people. So like we are always inspired, we are always really enjoy their work, and like the kind of designs they normally produce, and not only the design but their approach towards like getting to the design. So like the approach they use, the process they use. So I think that is commendable. On the other hand side, of course, the Pakistan has its own limitation, but yes, the development wise, the software coding wise, like the developers are really good over here. Like with the Ukraine, you sometimes actually face a communication barrier. Like not everybody speak English, but yes, most of the guys speak English. But on the other hand side, in Pakistan, like Pakistan is among top five English speaking companies. So those who do not have a native speaking English, but at the same time our official language is English. So like most of the guys speak English over here. So like that actually helps to understand and establish a good collaboration between the people. So yes, there isn't any competition. It is like about who can bring more value and who can actually take that position and solve the problem, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So, what is the best way to manage and monitor external developers?
Um, I think there are so many things, and I think number one, again, I want to take you back towards the requirements. So, like once you have defined the proper requirements, once you have established the proper business goals in front of the people, the number thing is about the communication protocol you define. For example, you want to communicate through the Asana, or maybe through the Zoom channel, or maybe the Google Zoom meeting, or maybe sometimes few of the business actually prefer to like speak on, communicate on WhatsApp. So you cannot say no to those businesses. But of course, we do rely on more of a professional channels, like set up a meeting through the Zoom or maybe some other channel. And at the same time, the another important factor to manage those teams is to basically utilize the software and the tools that are available right now. So when we talk about the software development, then mostly it is a Jira, it's Trello and Asana. So these kind of project management, the task management, and the work management tools actually helps you to keep track how the team is progressing, and at the same time, you actually provide your information and your style upfront that this is how I would like to see the progress going on. So you can always bring up the like in front of you and see like where the plan is, how we are progressing, what kind of milestone or the sprint we have achieved, what is we are going to do next, and what is the complete roadmap of the product. So these kind of tools actually gives you a lot of clarity and insight, like what is happening around. So you actually do not need to micromanage them. You do not need to really worry about this. So if you have those kind of tools in place and you both agreed that yes, this is how you will be communicating, this is how you will be updating the project progress, then I think a lot of the information, a lot of the problem will be resolved already. And number
Yeah.
four thing is about again like setting up the quality standard, setting up the standard actually. So I gave you example from my experience, but it happens a lot when you try to manage any outsourced resourcing and you actually sometimes it is not advisable, but sometimes you end up like hiring the wrong resources, or they are not up to the level. For example, you wanted somebody as an experienced developer, but he became an ordinary developer or like mid-level developer, so he's not producing like really quality stuff which you were expecting. So setting that quality standard upfront, like communicate to the outsourcing team that this is what we want. So like if we want 5 developers, then we want this kind of caliber, this kind of skill set, and our product will require this kind of knowledge, domain knowledge that would be required. So if you have a developer, then assign to that developer, otherwise replace it. So it happens sometimes that you have to replace, you have to change the developer in the middle of the journey, just because you later on down the road you actually come to realize, okay, these are not the right fit. They are not on the wavelength what we were talking about and what sort of quality we were expecting.
Yeah. So, what is like the most important things? Let's say I'm a CTO in a company. I have several projects, and I want to outsource one of them. What would be like the main 2 or 3 points that I have to keep in mind when I want to hire someone from the outside?
You see, I think the number one thing is about the business objective, and then, of course, when you go and try to hire anybody, you have to make sure that you select the right partner. And when you talk about how to select the right partner, then of course there are multiple ways of doing it. So number one is like run your own due diligence. So like look around them, look onto their profile, look into their social media, on their website, like what kind of people they are, how active they are on the social media, what kind of cultural activities they are posting on social media. So you actually get to know more about these people, and then you actually then the customer reviews is like one of the main validation normally that works in this space. So you go out there, see Google reviews or Facebook or maybe Clutch reviews to figure out like what the previous customer has said about them. So like if they are genuine customer, then they will write about good and the bad experience if you have with them on those profiles. So like when you are going to hire them, then make sure that they are the right fit, and you did your own research on them. and you look into the profile, their portfolio, so kind of project they have delivered in the past, something that is more relatable to you. So that whenever you get like set up any sort of engagement, then you can talk more about them, just because you can relate and you can ask their previous experience, how did they approach it and how did they deliver that project. So that kind of research you have to run upfront in order to identify, in order to figure out who is the best suitable candidate or the best suitable company for you. And apart from that, there are a few more things which you have to learn with the time. When you actually get into the discussion with these people, you have to figure out like what sort of standards they have, like what sort of policies they have, how their communication style is, uh, and what the security measures they have placed. So for example, if you have a very confidential idea, so like do they start with the NDA, do they have really good and protecting contracts so that your information can be secured and you can like rely on them, you can trust on them. So all that information is really uh, important, and at the same time you have to trust them, and you have to ask all the right questions that is that actually helps you to make your decision. But I think these are the few key factors on based on that you can actually select the right partner, and then you can move on with the rest of the discussion.
Yeah. Another thing that I would say, because I come from product and design, I think that they need to have something which is very agreed and aligned upon. So you call it requirements. I think that if they have the design or they have even the vision of the product in front of them, it will be so much easier first to discuss it. So you have the same point of view, and this is what we want to create, and then the developers will understand this is what we want to create, and they say, okay, we worked with someone who aligned everybody in the company agreed on that, this is what we want to create. And then you are, as a developer, you could estimate it much better, you know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what's the way it needs to be, and you could find all the points that you need to ask and discuss. For example, if there is some kind of a feature that you're not sure exactly how they want to, you see it in front of you, but don't know exactly how they want it, you could ask about it, and then you have
Yeah.
this focal point for the discussion even before you start to work.
Mm-hmm. That is
Yeah.
right, and I think it goes with the kind of clients you are working with. So mostly when you work with any solo entrepreneurs or maybe small kind of businesses, normally they need more education. Of course, they always come up with some sort of like their own research, maybe sometimes the wireframes on the paper. So what we would like to see is like how much they have a knowledge about their own idea and what sort of vision they have. Especially when you work with the enterprises or like the mid-size or the big-size companies, they always come up with very very specific information and like the requirement. So they have already done their research and their homework. But with the solo entrepreneurs or maybe with the small businesses, our responsibility is not only to develop the software, but actually to educate them and counsel them throughout the journey. So maybe they have just mapped out whatever they had in their mind on the kind of blueprint you have on the paper, but you as a software development expert, your responsibility is to actually give them a knowledge and educate them throughout the journey, like what is the design phase and how the design phase will be progressed through. Before that, if you are going to write user stories, or maybe if you are creating the wireframe, then you actually give them a knowledge like how is this going to be translated to the next video, next phase, and the next phase, and like how this entire thing will take a shape, just because the vision is in your mind. And when you actually start seeing that converting into design on the product development, this is where you actually get a lot of trouble, just because if you did not educate them properly, if you did not understand their idea completely, you will struggle a lot in the later phases of the project, because the customer will say that this is not what I was envisioning, and guys did not develop thing like that I wanted. The thing which she wanted or he wanted, you never extracted that information during the initial requirement gathering and scoping phase. So if you are a smart software development team and you have that skill set, then with your questionnaire, with your interview session, with your requirement gathering session, actually you extract a lot of that information that actually helps you to translate into the technical knowledge. But at the same time, uh, the customer actually understand, okay, these guys are understanding my vision, these guys are understanding what exactly I want, and they are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, sounds really, really good. So before we start, I have my last question. What would be your tips for leaders today?
So I think, of course, coming back to the two main points, like if you wanna control, reduce the development cost, then of course, software outsourcing is one of the key factor which normally the business has relied on a lot, and they have seen a lot of success. But whenever you outsource, then make sure you run your due diligence on the company properly. You see again like the kind of portfolio reviews and everything which they have done so far. So make sure you choose the right partner. And number two is like set your expectation right up front to the team that this is what we want. And if you do not know, then ask, do not shy to like ask those questions, like to educate me, to let me know how, what sort of needs you have, and what sort of collaboration we can develop in order to be on the same page. And end of the day, the product success is the business success. So if they are buying on your vision and they are relating and tying their success with your product success, then you made the right choice and you have the right team working with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Asim. It's been very, very interesting. So where could people hear more about your work and about TekRevol? Yeah. Where give me like some examples, like a link, maybe in your social media, maybe your website.
Sorry, come again. I did not get the last part.
Where could people hear
Yeah.
more
Okay.
about TekRevol? Like
So
it's
you can.
tekrevol.com.
Yes. So our website is TekRevol.com, and you can just search me on Google or just write my name on Asim with TekRevol. Then you will find all my information about my social media, my LinkedIn. So yeah, LinkedIn is the platform where I'm more active, and this is where I mostly collaborate and communicate with the people. So you can reach out to me there pretty easily.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Asim, for your time. It's been very valuable for me, so thank you. And to all of you changemakers out there, thank you for joining us. If you want to learn more about what I do, go to invincibleinnovation.com, and I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm Mazor Kario, and you've been listening to the Invincible Innovation Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, invincibleinnovation.com, where you can learn more about our programs and my book, Innovating Through Chaos. I'll be waiting for you next week in our next episode. Thank you for listening.